Hi, everybody. I'm Leanna Alvarez. I am the 2026 MLS Chair.
Hi, everybody. My name is Georgia Purpura. I am the MLS 2026 Vice Chair.
So for those of you that could not attend the MLS Participants Forum that we had here in October, joining us today via Zoom is Charlie Lee, Associate General Counsel and VP Association Legal Affairs of the National Association of Realtors. And he's here to discuss emerging lawsuits, regulatory exposure, governance risks associated with artificial intelligence in real estate. So welcome, Charlie. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Liana. Hi, Georgia. Really glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. I had a great time when I was there in person, and I'm looking forward to continuing our conversation, specifically in relation to deep fake scams and cybersecurity scams and anything else. So thank you again just for this opportunity.
So Charlie, let's begin by asking how artificial intelligence is being utilized to scam not only members, but real estate consumers as well.
Yeah, almost anything, right? There's always the good, and then there's, of course, like the bad. And so artificial intelligence has really improved people's lives. It's become like this new trend where if you're not using it, then you're falling behind. And so I think it's great. It's a great, form of technology, and it's allowed, our members, real estate professionals to be able to do things efficiently, to be able to be more effective. But then at the same time, that technology is available to people that have bad intentions or not looking to serve consumers' interest. And so think back to when you used to get those emails where people would say, hey, I am some long lost prince and I can't wait to give you $100 million just because I want to. Just give me your bank account information. And we used to say, well, look for those typos, right? Look for those typos and those obvious giveaways, and you should know that is a scam. Well, artificial intelligence is now making things like that a lot more difficult to detect. And that's because AI is able to not only create communications that look very legitimate, they're able to disguise the ways in these communications come across. And now it's evolved to where they can impersonate you, they can impersonate government officials, they can impersonate loved ones, and they're defrauding consumers by, making them think that they're dealing with someone who they're not, and then ultimately they give away, sensitive information. Either it's like passwords or account information, or they're actually getting people to follow through and wire money to the wrong bank account. Now, this is happening in real estate because, as you guys know, real estate transactions are oftentimes the most expensive transactions for a consumer. So there's a lot of money involved. And as a result, scammers are targeting the real estate industry, in particular real estate consumers.
We're always kind of giving out those warnings and trying to make everybody aware, but we've been told that there's definitely some newer scams that have been going on that you've been seeing of recent regarding title and vacant land. You mentioned wire fraud. Can you touch base on some of those?
Yeah. And so what I can tell you is that these scams are coming up in vacant land scams, seller impersonations, fake listings, cryptocurrency scams, and wire fraud. Wire fraud's not new, but it's taking shape in different, means of being able to effectuate that wire fraud. And so some of what I'm talking about is, there's what's called voice cloning and synthetic audio. Okay, so kind of like what the name suggests, it is the use of AI where they will take someone's, recording that has their voice, and they will capture that information and then replicate it with an AI tool. And then they can go ahead and make calls sounding like let's say if they're impersonating you, sounding like you, and if people aren't listening closely enough, they will think that they're talking to you. And so that's really dangerous when you're a consumer and I'm relying on you to tell me what to do so that I can go and either sell my home, or I can go and like make sure that I'm putting those down those deposits. I am transferring that money so that I can close that transaction. Another scam, or another method that's being used for scams, is synthetic identity fraud. And so this is where they are looking to use any sort of stolen information, and they will take that to, commit what is called like deed fraud. And so that is a combination of combing through public information, but also other information that you can find through people's social media accounts, and they will be able to cobble that together, and then they can go ahead and impersonate, like, let's say, a vacant land property owner. Another thing is generative AI phishing, where they will use AI to create emails that seem very legitimate, and through that communication, they will get people to either give up sensitive information or do things relying on their belief that that is a legitimate communication. And then there's also data scraping, where they will go ahead and comb like people's websites, take that information and do any of the things that we've talked about. And then of course they're able to also create videos similar to synthetic audio. They're able to create videos and try to replicate your image, and then they will show up on Zoom looking maybe 85% of what you look like, and they will try to get people to close on a transaction or send them money.
And it's interesting because you say that, they use recordings to make this happen. And we have the hugest recording devices out there, social media. I mean, when you think of real estate agents, our likeness, our voice, our tone, our timbre, everything is out there and available, because as our industry, we challenge each other to get more on social media and putting more of that content out there. And, any tool that we have can obviously be used as a weapon. And that, I think, makes it even more challenging to figure out what is what, because we use it so much as a tool to identify when it's being used for, ill purposes. That's a real challenge.
It is a challenge, and you're right. It's almost like a catch-22. Because anything that you do, with good intentions, someone is out there trying to take that and twist it and use it for bad intentions. And so that's where I think, awareness is really important, that people know that these things exist so that they can scrutinize it better, right? As great as AI is, supposedly it's, only as good as about 85%. And I don't even know if it's that high in being able to actually mimic who you are and to be able to truly trick people into believing that you are like the person that they actually see on Zoom. In fact, I think one of the stories that I told when I was there in Vegas was about how there was a transaction and the scammer was able to trick everyone all the way up until the closing. But at the closing, someone had the wherewithal to, one, require the seller to appear on video, because I guess the seller couldn't be there in person. And so they were there on video, and they were going through all of the steps to complete the transaction. And someone at the closing noticed that the seller was never moving their hands and never raised their hands. And so they asked the seller that was on the Zoom, could you just raise your hand and wave to everyone? And the seller did it. The seller would not move, right? And so that's when everybody knew that they had just fallen for a scam. And so they were able to stop the transaction. And so that's where you need to now think beyond, just trusting what it is that you're seeing, going to take those extra steps to do things like, hey, can you raise your hand? Can you do some of those other things a natural person can do? Or like when you're dealing with a vacant land scam, we said, take the steps of maybe like calling people's neighbors, and asking, hey, is your property, is the neighbor that owns that land, do you know if they're actually selling that property? Or if the person is reaching out to you and saying, I want to sell my vacant land, you can ask them questions about what they know about the town. Do they know where that nearest gas station is? What's the name of the closest grocery store? And that's where you can test them, and then you can verify whether the person is actually who it is that they're representing to be.
I think that the escrow companies in Las Vegas have done a relatively good job at also putting safeguards in place. So having more of the conversation with the team, the lender, the escrow company, the other side, just to kind of to compare notes, a bit to make sure that we have all of the right players at the table.
Absolutely. It takes a village, like they said. And, everybody has the common interest in being able to ensure that that transaction is a legitimate transaction and that nobody is harmed in completing that transaction.
And then I know we're obviously with this, podcast and trying to make efforts within the MLS to educate and inform not only our members, but also, consumers along the way as well. Are there other recommendations or resources that you would suggest?
So we've got a good number of resources on our NAR website, and I would encourage people to check out legal.realtor. And when you go there, you will find different videos that you can share with your consumers, share with your colleagues. But we also have like cybersecurity checklists. We have a data privacy and security checklist. All things that can equip you to be able to handle these types of situations. And we're looking to add more resources so that you can, stay on top of all of these scams that are happening. In terms of other best practices, I think, the thing is, one, if you're being contacted in a way where it's been unsolicited, you want to make sure that you are verifying that person's identity. And so don't just go off of, anything that they're providing, even when they're just providing you a copy of their driver's license, right? Like years ago, like that was the foolproof way of verification. Now with AI and with all that technology, you can't even detect, the differences between a fake one and a real one. And so you need to take more steps, like some of the things that I talked about. I think the other thing is that you always want to be careful when someone is asking for personal information, because that's where you are going to become vulnerable, because they will take that personal information and they will use it for, these types of scams. And maybe it's not to you, but it will be to try to scam someone else. I think the other thing is that when someone is pressing you to move quickly, that should be a red flag. And oftentimes they will frame it as saying like, I have this amazing deal and I want to sell something below market. Just sell it for anything that you can do. So you're just thinking, hey, that's an easy job. I can do that. And as a result, I'm like, this guy is saying that they need to do it because maybe they need the funds, they need that liquidity. And so I'm trying to help them. But what happens is that urgency is often false, and it's meant to cause you to do things in haste. And then what happens is you fall in for a scam. I think the other thing is take advantage of the internet, take advantage of your friends, take advantage of your colleagues, ask them if this seems legitimate. Do your research to see if it is legitimate. And then also remember the golden rule, which is that if it seems too good to be true, act like it is. And then that's where you're going to have to take those cautious steps and do all the things that I've talked about. And then the other thing is that if you do believe that you have fallen for a scam, that's where you're going to contact law enforcement as quickly as you can, because if you're able to do it usually within 48 hours, maybe 72 at most, that's when there is a greater chance of recovery. So you don't want to waste any time. If you feel that you have fallen for something, make sure you contact law enforcement.
Perfect. Thank you. And, the biggest resource for our agents in Las Vegas and Southern Nevada is talk to your broker. Your broker typically has far more exposure to these types of things and will be a great sounding board to help you figure out what is legitimate and what is not. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, I don't go a week without somebody asking me, can we buy a house with crypto yet? And so I know there's a lot of uncertainty and scams around cryptocurrency and real estate. What has your experience been?
You're right. Cryptocurrency, I think, is, developed into a new way of being able to transact real estate. And scammers are also seeing that. And they're also knowing that there's still a lot that is unknown about cryptocurrency. People are still getting up to speed with cryptocurrency. And so as a result, scammers are exploiting that lack of knowledge, right? And so there is this particular scam called pig butchering. And the name actually comes from this whole concept where they are looking to fatten their victim. And so they fatten the victim, where in the end, that's when you will, take the most money from them and you butcher them, so to speak. Kind of the way, I guess, that happens to a pig. It's kind of gross to think about. But, and so with the pig butchering scam, what it is a scammer will pose as a very, wealthy buyer. And they'll reach out to you and say, I'm interested in buying homes. I want to use your services. And what they do is they develop this relationship with you, and you will believe that you are dealing with a high-end, client, and they will all of a sudden be generous about, the ways in which they got rich. And they will then invite you to explore an opportunity for an investment. And usually that's going to be like you going to a platform or going to a website where you will see things that look like real cryptocurrency. And I don't know if you guys have checked out like the cryptocurrency market. There are so many different cryptocurrencies. It's hard to keep track. And as a result, when you see this, it can be overwhelming and you'll think that, hey, this is legitimate. Now what happens is they'll say, hey, invest a small amount of money into it and you will see growth. And then you see, oh, okay, I actually made money, so this has to be legitimate. And some of the scammers will actually let you withdraw that money or put it into an account where you believe you actually possess it. And then what happens is they will encourage you to put in more money into that investment so you can take advantage of all of that return. And then in the end, after people have depleted their retirement accounts or they've depleted just their savings and things, then that's when you've been butchered and then they are gone. And so that's where the concept of pig butchering has come in. The Secret Service actually contacted us last year and let us know that realtors and real estate professionals were being targeted in this way, that people had lost millions of dollars already. And so we alerted members about this, and we actually have a video about it and a resource that people should check out.
So it sounds like when in doubt, just ask, talk to your broker, talk to colleagues, consult the internet, and just create certainty for yourself. I want to always stay optimistic, but you have to have that layer of caution, cautiously optimistic when we're dealing with new people, because our business is dealing with new people constantly.
Yes, exactly. You want to talk to people, you want to do your due diligence. I think the other thing is that, just make sure that you're also keeping up with the best practices in terms of data security. And what I mean by that is that don't rely just on passwords, right? In fact, I think like people say don't use passwords, period. They say, use either a multi-factor authentication or they will use some biometric way to provide like a pass key. I heard somewhere that people say maybe use phrases instead of like characters. And for whatever reason, that is a little bit more secure. I think the other thing is just you guys are dealing with, very expensive transactions. And as a result, your communications when you are, delivering information that's very sensitive, it shouldn't be done through emails or text messages. Information like that should be done in a secure fashion. So make sure that you are using a communication platform that is secure, and it minimizes those chances where a scammer can infiltrate that. And then the other thing is just that your technology partners take advantage of all the ways in which they can protect you, but also make sure that they are doing their best to protect you. And so vet them, ask them how it is that they're going to ensure that you are able to do your job in protecting your consumers. And then, like you said, Georgia, make sure that you're talking to your brokers if you're the agent. And if you're the brokers, make sure you're providing that training, because you just can't train enough about this. There are too many stories where even when companies have that type of training, there's always that one someone who will fall for it. And then sometimes it takes just one person and it will end up being a huge, like a password leak, or it will be some sort of data breach, or it'll be ransomware. And it only just took one time for that scammer to be successful.
Yeah, and I think our consumers is that they're trusting in us to be knowledgeable and to be informed professionals, and the onus is on us to ensure that we are protecting our data as well as their data throughout the transaction as well. So very important stuff.
Yeah. So, Charlie, you come out, how often do you come to Vegas? Because you've been out to speak a few times.
I've been fortunate enough to come, I think, at least once every year for maybe 3 years or so. So Stephanie has always been gracious to, have me out there and speak to your members, and I've always enjoyed it. And so I think, it's been about 3 years.
Yes. And for those of you that didn't attend the last Participants Forum, Charlie is going to be speaking at this year's MLS Participants Forum, which is going to be in October. And then just kind of on a final note, the MLS board, we're always looking at, innovation, but it's very important for us to always balance that innovation with kind of risk controls. So that's something when we are reviewing different tools and platforms to enhance, all of our members' services, that we're always looking for that balance and that protection to make sure that we're taking it into consideration in that boardroom as well.
Yeah, that's great. I love hearing that. Be smart, with anything that you're using. I think with AI as well, there's a difference between the free models and then the ones that you pay for. And so if you can afford it, I would highly recommend using the paid services, and then just being sure that you are not giving up any sensitive information that could get you into trouble.
And I think, as you said, if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Probably is. Well, thank you, Charlie, so much for your time. And we are excited to have you back out in Vegas in October. And for those of you that did miss Participants Forum last year, I strongly encourage you to attend, because I have a feeling, Charlie, this is going to be an ongoing conversation we're all going to be in for a while.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I look forward to seeing you later this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.